I did respect him. I don't respect him anymore because he say I'm not gonna do what they want me to do and this and that. And
Stands no chance. But then I watched it the next month. I was like, he actually did way better than I thought he would have did. But people forget Jake Paul, rostered Ohio State rostered, so he's tough. He's not as good boxer as good skill, but he's tough.
Jake Paul beat Anthony Joshua. That's insane. That's not real. That's not real in any facet. There was never a chance. Never.
Look what just went down after Jake Paul stepped in the ring with Anthony Joshua. Canelo Alvarez came out swinging with words that cut deeper than any punch. He basically told Jake to drop the whole professional boxer routine and face reality. The Mexican superstar wasn't playing games here, making it painfully obvious that Jake's wandering into territory way above his pay grade. This isn't about some minor skill gap we're discussing. Canelo drew a hard line between legitimate championship level competition and whatever Jake's been doing in those squared circles. His message hit like a sledgehammer. No diplomatic language or fake just straight truth from someone who's earned the right to speak on what real boxing looks like. Canelo made it brutally clear that Jake's boxing journey has become a joke, and all this pretending needs to stop immediately.
Everybody make mistakes, right? But you need to do your best. Or do what you do, not try to be something else. Just do your best as a person. Sometimes it's enough. Sometimes for people it's not.
Dylan White dropped some truth that everyone saw coming from miles away. Jake Paul walking into that ring with Anthony Joshua was like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Zero possibility of victory from the opening bell. But here's what caught White off guard. Jake managed to hang in there way longer than anyone predicted. That toughness probably comes from his wrestling days, learning how to absorb punishment and keep moving forward when everything hurts. Let's call this exactly what it was though. Jake wasn't fighting to win anything. He was in pure survival mode, playing defense and hoping to make it to the final bell without getting knocked unconscious. White's message couldn't be more direct about what needs to happen next. This whole experiment needs to end right now, today, before we're talking about broken bones and hospital visits. Taking repeated heavy shots from elite heavyweights isn't something anyone should sign up for, regardless of the paycheck. When White talks about facing Jake himself, he makes it clear that fight would end very quickly. Jake proved he's got heart. Nobody can question that part. But continuing this path only leads to serious injuries that money can't fix.
Then I watched it the next month. I was like, he actually did way better than I thought he would have did. But people forget Jake Paul rostered Ohio State rostered, so he's tough. He's not as good boxer as good skill, but he's tough. Wrestling is a very competitive sport in America, and to be a Ohio State wrestling level, you have to be they're physically tough and physically strong. So yeah, he was tough. That's why he survived in there. He did what he had to do in there. He got tagged with a few shots, and he did extremely well. AJ did poor.
In those situations where the fighter is that negative and had those kind of tactics, he went to ground a few times, etc. I don't think people quite understand it. It doesn't matter who you are, it's quite difficult. People expect AJ within 20 seconds to literally, with the first punch thrown or the first jab thrown, just to knock him out. It's not that easy, is it, when a fighter is kind of going in there to just survive?
It's always easier to beat someone that's coming to win than someone that's in there to survive. But they should have known that. They should have known that Jake Paul is never going to come to win. But it's just mad that AJ couldn't cut the ring off. He just made him run. He couldn't cut the ring off and hit with punches, and he was swinging and missing a few times. And obviously Jake Paul was hitting him with a few punches. I was like, I was surprised that and I was surprised that it took so much runs to get him out of there. And then when he did knock him out, he didn't knock him out outright. He broke his jaw and stuff, but Jake was alright. He just sort of got up and just said, my jaw is broken. He didn't get struck. I was kind of surprised. I was very surprised. Because that right hand was a big one. I thought, damn, okay. He took it and get up. So maybe Jake is a physically tougher and stronger person than people think he is.
I'm assuming you don't blame Joshua for the money being talked about, 40-50 million, for doing that. No.
No. I'll take that. I'll definitely take that. I'll fight Jake Paul next if he wants it. I'll take that. But I'll go after him though. I'll tell you what, I don't put him away 1 or 2 rounds. No way he's getting past that. Because that's like that's such a big moral victory for Jake, saying that he wins so much rounds than Anthony Joshua.
Here's something that might shock you. Canelo Alvarez actually gave Jake Paul credit for getting better at this boxing thing. When you watch Jake's recent fights compared to where he started, the improvement is real. Better footwork, improved timing, and genuine toughness when things get rough. You can tell Jake's been grinding in the gym with real trainers, putting in serious work to develop legitimate skills. But here's where Canelo drops the hammer. Despite all that progress and dedication, Jake needs to walk away right now. He's already pushed this experiment further than anyone expected, facing opponents who could seriously hurt him permanently. Canelo's point is simple. Jake's proven whatever he needed to prove. Time to step back before something really bad happens that can't be undone. Throughout Jake's career, Canelo's been calling out how he picks his opponents, always going after retired fighters or guys who aren't in their prime, avoiding the real killers who are still hungry and dangerous. When someone asked if Canelo would ever fight Jake, his response was pure comedy gold. Maybe when Jake hits 50 years old, possibly even older than that. That joke tells you everything about how Canelo views Jake's place in this sport. The gap between real champions and celebrity boxing isn't just big, it's massive.
I hope he improved more and he do a really good job. Really, I say this and serious. I hope he doing really good job and improve in boxing and it's fine.
Would you ever entertain a Jake Paul fight?
Not right now. Let's see later when I have like a 50.
Brendan Schaub breaks down something that should be obvious to anyone watching. Thinking Jake Paul could actually beat Anthony Joshua is living in fantasy land, completely disconnected from reality. Jake does pack surprising power for someone his size, which deserves respect, but that power means nothing. When you're facing elite heavyweight competition, we're not talking about a small difference here. The gap between Jake and someone like Joshua is like comparing a weekend warrior to a professional athlete who's been perfecting their craft for decades. Schaub hammers home that no amount of social media hype can change these facts. Doesn't matter how many followers Jake has or how much noise his fights create online. Jake shows up with heart and gives everything he's got. That part can't be questioned. But when you strip away all the promotion and spectacle, he's still massively outgunned against world-class competition. The idea that internet fame translates to boxing excellence is completely backwards thinking.
Jake Paul beat Anthony Joshua. That's insane. That's not real. That's not real in any facet. There was never a chance. There's never a chance. And the Jake Paul fans, and I was getting this a ton from DMs and comments going, well, everyone has a puncher's chance. That's an uneducated opinion. A puncher's chance, yes. If they're in a bar and Anthony Joshua's there at the pub and Jake Paul were to sneak up behind him and hit him in the back of the head or, in the side or something, maybe, even then, he's a little light in the ass, but maybe that's a puncher's chance. In a professional bout where a professional fighter at the level of Anthony Joshua is at, and he is going into a ring knowing and expecting to get hit, there is no puncher's chance when there's that much discrepancy in talent level. There's not, especially when the size difference. And some of you will say Jake Paul hits hard. To you, yes, to you. But also Jake Paul hits hard for a 200-pound man. He wouldn't even measure in the top 1,000 professional heavyweight boxers in the world as far as the strength knockout meter, if there is such a thing. It's not possible. So a lot of you were tuning in for saying, well, he has a puncher's chance. That's not real. That doesn't exist here. And now they could do this, but I don't think it's going to get the same amount of views, but it would set expectations. If when this fight was announced, Jake Paul's team said, hey, we're fighting Anthony Joshua. Who thinks we can last 8 rounds? Who thinks we can go all 8 rounds? Who thinks Jake Paul can go 8 rounds?
Here's Brendan Schaub keeping it real about expectations. Anyone thinking Jake Paul was gonna walk through Anthony Joshua was dreaming. Plain and simple. Jake's got legitimate power for his weight class. That much is true and impressive. But elite heavyweight standards are a completely different universe. The experience gap alone is staggering, not even considering technique and conditioning advantages. Schaub emphasizes that all the hype and viral moments can't bridge this massive divide. Jake's social media empire doesn't mean anything when real punches start flying. Credit where it's due, Jake shows genuine heart and determination every time he steps through those ropes. Nobody can say he doesn't give maximum effort and fight with everything he's got, but facing legitimate world-class competition exposes the reality of where he actually stands. Internet celebrity status and genuine boxing mastery are two completely separate things that take decades to develop.
Share the ring. Your takeaways from the 6 rounds that we saw, presuming you watched?
I was impressed with Jake Paul. I thought that, following on from what we're saying, right? A few years ago, he was on Disney as a kid, acting up, and has decided to become a professional fighter. That takes balls, but he's obviously striving to be as good as he can be. You can see that in the way that he moves, the way that he is developed in how he's punching and performing. But to make a 2-time world heavyweight champion that's still live, you know, AJ's still got something about him, to make him miss in such an accomplished manner. All right, so at times he was jumping out and running around, but there were times when he was well in range and still making AJ unable to land a clean, solid shot. He deserves a lot of respect for that. And then the shot that actually finished the fight, that broke his jaw quite badly, didn't put him out. That shot's put that shot he threw with serious intention has put a lot of professional heavyweights to sleep. He didn't go to sleep. He actually finished on his knees, didn't he? Laughing and spitting blood out of his mouth. So, like they say, like it's a special type of crazy and a special type of brave to do it. But I actually hats off to him, because he showed that he's developing some accomplished little skills in there to look after himself. The size difference is always going to fatigue him.
I know everyone will come with the idea that, oh, well, AJ should just go in there 1 round and smash him to bits, and that should be it was a big ring, right? Perhaps he could have cut the ring off a bit better, but would I be right in saying that regardless of skill level, if you forget about that with the 2 for a second, if someone is on the back foot on their bike and doing what Jake was doing, it's difficult, no matter who you are, no matter the kind of separation in skill level.
It's a big ring, and you've either got to run at him and look like a novice yourself, or just take your time and understand that he's going to slow down.
Adam Booth gave Jake Paul his flowers while keeping everything in perspective. Throughout that fight, Jake actually made Anthony Joshua miss several clean shots, which is genuinely impressive considering the massive skill gap between them. Booth noticed real improvements in Jake's movement and positioning, showing he'd been drilling fundamentals and working on defensive basics. You could see Jake had been studying, really focusing on those core techniques that separate amateurs from professional. This tactical awareness forced Joshua to reset multiple times, preventing him from landing those devastating combinations he normally unleashes. Let's be honest about Jake's current level though. He's still nowhere near elite professional standards, and pretending otherwise would be ridiculous. But Booth recognizes that these moments of success prove real measurable growth in Jake's boxing development. With smarter movement and patience, combined with solid defensive positioning, Jake made a top-tier opponent work harder than expected and think twice before throwing bombs.
To your point, Jake Paul wasn't so much moving laterally all the time. He was literally running. Look at some of those rounds. He was running. He was going north to south, not side to side. He was running. Anthony Joshua should have been able to cut the ring off. And the times that AJ had Jake Paul cornered, he couldn't get shots off. He wasn't going to the body. He wasn't using his superior size on Jake. Like, I heard Nikisa Badarian say afterwards that AJ was leaning on Jake. Come on. Like, Jake was leaning into AJ, falling into AJ, and that's why those clinches were taking place. AJ is purportedly one of the best heavyweights in boxing. AJ believes he's on the level that he should challenge Tyson Fury. That wasn't the kind of performance that makes me believe Anthony Joshua is still a high-level heavyweight.
Well, you're wrong again. Anthony Joshua didn't look great because he wasn't allowed to look great. When you're in there with a smaller fighter that refuses to engage, refuses to box, to fight, he's running. Think of Canelo Williams' school. Canelo didn't look good, and he got accused of not being able to.
Okay, can I just 1 second? 1 second. I knew you were going to go there.
Oh,
William School is or was an undefeated 168-pounder with a deep amateur background. Jake Paul is a guy who lost to Tommy Fury with no amateur background. So don't compare the two. Don't compare William School to Jake Paul. It's not the same thing.
No, but I can compare a man running for his life and another man running for his life. These guys didn't want to engage. They didn't want to try to win. Now, I told you, Jake Paul was going to look for one shot. That's the overhand right. And once he misses that, he's going to realize he's in for a long night and a painful one.
Sergio Mora walked away from that fight feeling genuinely disappointed by what he witnessed. The technical display just wasn't there, missing the sophistication he hoped to see. Jake's strategy throughout the entire fight was basically move forward or move backward, no lateral movement or angle creation whatsoever. This predictable approach actually helped him survive by creating distance whenever Joshua tried to close in and land clean shot. While Jake's backward movement kept him out of serious trouble and prevented major damage, it lacked the complexity you need at high-level boxing. The limited footwork stopped Joshua from setting up proper angles and connecting his best combinations, forcing him to reset constantly and chase Jake around the ring. Mora's critique highlights that while Jake showed heart and defensive awareness, his ringcraft remained extremely basic compared to what championship-level fighters bring. The one-dimensional movement worked for survival, but didn't demonstrate the sophisticated skills needed for elite competition.
I thought it was going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was going to be a silent agreement. I wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that will spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why I said it's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, you know, we'll play a little bit and then we'll get a little more and, you know, whatever. So that was part of it. But there was real parts. Say, that's the fixed part. That's the WWE part. That's where the people, and I'm with you. I get it if you want to think that. Here's why I picked rounds, and this is what I think I saw, and I know that in my mind I saw, was the factors that a lot of people didn't think about. 15 months off. And there was going to be some ruts. There was going to be some hesitation. There was going to be some time. He got knocked out by Dubois freaking 15 months ago. There were going to be ghosts in the attic. I don't care who you're fighting. You get in the ring again. It's going to take a minute to exercise those ghosts. The rust. You want to call it rust, whatever. It's going to take 5-6 rounds to get rid of the rust. But it's going to, the doubt, the self-doubt, the being in the ring for the first time with nothing in between after being knocked out. That was going to be a play. And then the size of the ring, 22 by 20. It's usually 20 to 20 is pretty usually around average. And it's 22 by 20. More room to elude, more room to move around, right? I thought maybe go in there with track shoes. He didn't go with track shoes. He should have probably had better ankle support because he hurt his ankle a little bit. And that, you know, he did. He rolled his ankle a little bit. So I thought those were real factors, physical factors, not WWE factors. Also, you know, some of the other factors was that Joshua is not a fast starter. So here you got 15 months in activity, not a fast starter to begin with. Come on, you with me, people? You know, now you are, because now we already know it went more rounds than we thought.
Teddy Atlas provided deep insight into his prediction about the fight going several rounds, explaining this wasn't about any staged outcome, but genuine tactical analysis. Jake faced completely new challenges mentally and physically, stepping up to a level of competition he'd never experienced before. According to Atlas, this fight pushed Jake to intensity and focus beyond anything in his previous matchups, dealing with both Joshua's devastating power and the mental pressure of facing a world-class heavyweight. This test revealed resilience and adaptability that Jake hadn't shown before, proving his willingness to endure serious punishment and keep fighting even when things got ugly. The experience demonstrated strengths Jake didn't know he had, while also showing him what elite competition really feels like when someone's trying to take your head off.
Come back in 2026, and I don't think he fights a ton in 2026. I think it'll be a very slow year for him. Look for those two guys as the main two he would fight. I wish it was Tommy Fury, but I doubt it. On the other side, I want to see him get back into boxing specifically, get back into committing to this, because there is a massive fight that awaits him in Tyson Fury. It's far past time that it happened. If they don't do it now, they never will. And yeah, man, I don't really know what else to say on this fight as far as you know, what happened in there tonight. I know on Twitter people are going to want their money back, or they're going to call it a bad fight or a sloppy fight or whatever, and then there's going to be people, you know, celebrating Jake's downfall. That was always going to be the case. Of course, the first time he gets rocked, dropped, and stopped, people are going to celebrate like it's the 4th of July, or it's their birthday, or like it's Christmas. So yeah, expect that, but I won't do that here. I won't, because I respect the hell out of him for going and doing it, and there's not any normal people on earth that would have done it. I don't care if you say, oh, for the money I would have, you're lying. And there's not many pro boxers that would have done what Jake did.
The commentator Wade broke down Jake Paul's unique position in boxing and how it influenced his approach. Unlike traditional champions who must face mandatory challengers whether they want to or not, Jake had complete freedom to pick high-profile matchups that generate massive pay-per-view numbers and social media buzz. This flexibility allowed him to focus on entertainment value and financial returns rather than strict competitive rankings that most boxers deal with. Wade suggested that Jake's confidence from previous accomplishments influenced his belief in his abilities, but his tactics reflected careful risk management and energy conservation. The goal was maximizing future opportunities and setting up even bigger fights down the road while managing the immediate danger in front of him.
So long as people will tune in, and so long as Jake Paul is paid by Netflix or any broadcaster to air his fights, we're going to see this continue. And Jake Paul knows his business model, right? Now, this deviated, this AJ fight, which came together kind of last minute after the Tank Davis fight fell apart. But we know Jake Paul's MO here. It's find the most popular guy with the most physical disadvantages for me to fight. And Jake Paul has the benefit that he's turned himself into a villain, or in the pro wrestling circles, a heel. People tune in to watch. We did not tune into this fight to see competitive boxing. Most of us tuned in because we thought, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's a 2-time unified heavyweight champion, a guy who physically just overwhelms Jake Paul. And we're finally going to get what Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva and Nate Diaz were not physically fit, whether it be through their size, experience, or age, to do, and that is knock out Jake Paul. And so, because I don't really feel like we got that satisfying comeuppance that a lot of people have been waiting for, it kind of gives Jake Paul a little bit of mystique, I'd almost say, to still try and string this along. Now, I don't know in terms, he says he wants to be cruiserweight champion. I'm not quite sure what the competitive road there is, because let's make no mistake, the reason this fight lasted as long as it did is because Jake Paul focused exclusively on being elusive. He did his best, and kudos to him, right? He did a great job of not getting cornered. He was always on the gas until the gas sort of fell out from underneath him. And so I don't quite know, short of leveraging his popularity, how he's going to get to that title shot if he's not actually going to fight, like really fight an elite boxer. But if he's looking to make money, there's the KSI fight out there, there's the Tommy Fury rematch. There is ways for Jake Paul to sustain what he's doing.
Analysts Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas highlighted Jake's defensive approach as the key to his survival throughout the fight. They broke down how he relied on constant movement and elusiveness, staying on his toes and avoiding corners where Joshua could unleash his knockout power. This strategy allowed Jake to last longer than most experts predicted, frustrating Joshua at times and showing real tactical improvement from his earlier performances. Despite these smart efforts and his ability to make Joshua miss repeatedly, the fight ended with devastating consequences nobody wanted to see. Reports confirmed Jake suffered a broken jaw during the battle, an extremely serious injury that highlights the real dangers of facing elite competition. This type of damage underscores the severe physical toll these high-stakes matches take on fighters, especially those still learning the professional game.
For those of you that thought that the Anthony Joshua-Jake Paul fight was going to be rigged, these x-rays definitely tell a different story. So on December 19th of 2025, as I'm sure most of you are probably aware, Jake Paul fought the 2-time unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua at the Cassia Center in Miami, Florida, which was streamed exclusively on Netflix as part of a major boxing event that was promoted by Paul's Most Valuable Promotions. The ending result was Anthony Joshua won by knockout in the 6th round after Jake Paul was knocked down 4 times in total, twice in the 5th round and twice in the 6th round. Anthony Joshua landed 48 punches on Jake Paul compared to Jake Paul landing about 16 on Anthony Joshua. And this is the 2nd professional loss of Jake Paul's fighting career, dropping his record down to 12-2. Now, Jake Paul ended up suffering a double broken jaw during the fight and was taken to the hospital afterward, skipping the post-fight press conference probably because he probably couldn't talk. But in his in-ring interview, he said, "That was crazy. I had a blast. I think my jaw is broke." Anyway, as far as his professional fighting career is concerned, as of December 20th of 2025, he doesn't have any new opponents that have been announced, and it's expected that his jaw injury is going to take 4 to 6 weeks to recover from. Regardless of how you feel about him, that dude fought a 2-time heavyweight champion and survived. And I think we can all agree that regardless of how you feel, that takes some serious intestinal fortitude.
That brings us to the end of this breakdown. Jake Paul's broken jaw represents a serious medical situation that requires immediate attention and extended recovery time. No shortcuts allowed here. Given how severe this type of injury can be, he absolutely must avoid any further fights and focus completely on proper healing. This injury perfectly illustrates the intense danger of stepping in there with elite heavyweights like Anthony Joshua, who carry knockout power in both hands and know exactly how to use it. Despite Jake's best defensive efforts and tactical awareness throughout the fight, the punishment still resulted in significant structural damage. Rushing back into competition too soon risks permanent complications that could affect him for the rest of his life. We're talking about weeks or possibly months of rehabilitation ahead, making his health and recovery the absolute top priority right now. This injury sends a clear message that continuing high-stakes boxing without proper recovery would be reckless and potentially catastrophic for his long-term well-being.